So there's this big race weekend coming up in Miami, and guess what? Lots of racing teams are bringing cool new upgrades to make their cars faster, even though it's a sprint weekend. Usually teams wait for other tracks where they can test their new parts better, but everyone is so close behind the fastest driver, Verstappen, that nobody wants to waste time. So Mercedes, McLaren, and Ferrari are all rushing to bring their new car parts to try and understand their cars better and get ready for an even bigger test that's coming later at Imola. But here's the thing, what cool stuff will these teams actually bring, and more importantly, can they fix some of the really annoying problems with their cars? Take Mercedes for example. Their car is called the W15, and let me tell you, Mercedes had one of their worst starts to a season ever. It's been their worst beginning since they joined the sport. Back in 2010, only in 2012 did they struggle this much to get points in their first 5 races, but the Mercedes team, nicknamed the Silver Arrows, are hoping to turn things around in Miami. One of the biggest problems they want to fix with their upgrades is how wibbly and unpredictable their car feels. They also have this weird issue where what their computer simulator tells them should happen doesn't match what actually happens when they drive on the real track. It's like their car acts completely different during different parts of the same day on the same track. Their team boss Wolf says, "It's not going to be easy because they honestly don't even know where to start fixing things, but they're technical." Guy Allison says the upgrade package in Miami will probably focus on the floor of the car. That's the flat part underneath. Racing experts think that when we see this new version of the W15's bottom in Miami, it's going to put the car in a much better sweet spot to work properly. And here's the crazy part. Even though their results look terrible right now, Allison says they don't need to improve very much to start fighting for those top 3 finishes called podiums, and maybe even win races. I know that sounds totally weird when you look at how badly they're doing. Allison explained it more by saying the challenge they face in the coming races is to try and change both how they set up the car and also bring new pieces to the car so that the balance gets better. He said they've got upgrade packages coming to the car, but also parts that they hope will fix the underlying balance problem that's causing them so much trouble. The team seems to be saying different things about whether changing the car's setup actually helps much, like what happened in China. Even though Hamilton admitted he worked on his car's setup after the sprint race, which led to him having a terrible qualifying, where he got knocked out early and had to start 18th in the race, Russell said that wasn't the real problem because both drivers were using pretty similar setup choices anyway. No matter what, the upgrade package in Miami will show whether the team can overcome their main issue, which is figuring out if the upgrades they planned and tested in their fancy facilities are actually going to work when they drive on the real track. Team boss Wolf talked about this more when discussing the Miami race. He said every weekend you go to, you learn new things. He said they get to enjoy another sprint weekend where they basically get 2 chances to figure things out. And they definitely learned during the last weekend that if you're going to take big risks, do it in the sprint race and then play it safer for the main race instead of doing it the other way around. Hopefully they'll get the car in a better place and the upgrades they're bringing to Miami will help them. In qualifying, everyone is super close together in the battle they're fighting. Just a few tiny fractions of a second can make a difference, and a couple tenths of a second would change everything. But besides Mercedes, it looks like there are other teams out there who actually understand what they're working with, and the upgrades they're bringing will just focus on making their cars even faster. That's what's happening with Ferrari and McLaren. The Ferrari team from Maranello has managed to speed up their process of catching up to Red Bull with their long-awaited Imola package. But Miami will only show us part of this version 2.0 of their car that we're all excited to see. We want to know if it can wipe away Red Bull's advantage like their team boss Sainz said. That part will be the floor. The updated version of the floor will help Ferrari understand whether they're moving in the right direction with their Imola upgrades, and maybe learn a thing or two about the setup to get the most performance out of the car once it gets the first of 3 massive upgrade packages planned for 2024. That is, of course, Only if Red Bull's upgrades that they've also planned for Imola, which will change the whole concept of their car. Something they started in Suzuka and will finish in Imola won't be as good as they hoped. Either way, we've been promised an interesting championship battle from Imola onward. But until then, we'll see whether the floor that Ferrari planned is a step in the right direction. This is especially interesting considering this Miami track has been totally dominated by Red Bull in the first 2 times they raced there. What would be really interesting to see with Ferrari is how their drivers get along. We've noticed that sparks started flying between Sainz and Leclerc, and Sainz admitted that their team fight at the beginning of the Chinese race cost them big time, positions that they would have kept during the race. But there was one thing that bothered Ferrari that they hoped wouldn't be as painful as it was their car's setup. This problem stopped the team from getting the right amount of energy and heat into their tires, making them way too cold and unable to work in the best temperature range. So besides the floor upgrades in Miami, the Ferrari team from Maranello would be smart to also look at their setup choices, especially since they still have lots of improvements to make in qualifying and getting their SF24 car to go fast on single laps. But a direct threat to Ferrari's second place could be McLaren, considering how much confidence the Woking-based team has about fighting for podium finishes and race wins more often. This is something that has been talked about by their technical boss Andrea Stella and team boss Zak Brown, both of whom are going into this race weekend with careful optimism about what they're bringing. Even though it's not nearly as big as what they brought last year in Austria and Singapore, it could still be a pretty good step forward talking about the upgrades. Stella said the upgrades they have planned for Miami won't be as big as the 2 they delivered last year in Austria and Singapore, but it should be a decent step, like it should be noticeable. He said he can't say much more than that because otherwise they'd be talking about specific numbers that he wants to keep secret, but let's say it's not as big as Austria or Singapore, but similar to what Mercedes is doing. McLaren is also worried that what they've seen in their computer simulator, which promised them close fights up at the front, might not match what they're actually going to experience on the real track. When talking about this more, the team's CEO Zak Brown went on to calm down fans' hopes about expectations, saying they are looking forward to Miami, but there's always a little bit of nervousness because the computer data tells you one thing, and you hope it matches what happens on the racetrack. The great news is that their last bunch of upgrades did exactly what they thought they would. So there's no reason to believe that these upgrades won't have the same impact with Norris being optimistic that McLaren can fight for race wins with Red Bull under the right circumstances, which was pretty much a direct challenge too. Verstappen and potentially Ferrari, we can never count out the team that managed to gain over 1 second of performance in the middle of last season, and went from being one of the worst teams to the 4th best team on the grid. But with McLaren being McLaren, there's no doubt they won't be happy with just 3rd place, and they'll be giving their maximum effort with their youngest pair of drivers to finish 2nd in the Constructors' Championship, which isn't that crazy of a scenario if the upgrades in Miami do their job. With all this in mind, which team do you think will benefit the most from the upcoming race weekend in Miami? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and once you've done that, check out the video that's appearing on your screen right now.